As I was preparing my persuasive speech, I wasn't sure exactly what I should try to persuade you of. I thought about religion at first, but that's kind of a hot button topic and isn't really appropriate for this occasion. Then I thought about politics, but I'm not super knowledgeable about that, and also it's been done, so I didn't think that would be good either. So instead, I decided to talk about a social problem, something that affects millions of people and vilifies them, and actually it affects people worldwide. What am I talking about? Well, it's minority rights. Now, of course, you're probably thinking, but Christopher, minority rights are a good thing, not a bad thing. Well, that is true, in some ways. See, minority rights protect the small group from the big group, essentially, and make sure that the people in the little group get all the same things that the people in the big group get. But they also do something else. You see, the people in the little group, they get risen up next to the people in the big group when you, according to the laws and the official rights. But then, because of perceived prejudices, people in the little group often get risen above under the guise of things like political correctness, perhaps, or paying back for previous prejudices. And so what ends up being created is reverse racism. Now, what does that mean? Well, I pulled up some quotes from a professor at the University of Boston named Sadia Grundy. Now, she is like I said, she's a professor, a thought leader, essentially, for these people. And here's what she had to say. Why is white America so reluctant to identify white college males as a problem population? White masculinity is the problem for America's colleges. Deal with your white expletive, white people. Slavery is y'all thing. And then she said, every MLK week, I commit myself to not spending a dime in white-owned businesses, and every year I find it nearly impossible. So essentially, what this woman is saying is that it is wrong for these white people, these white males, to even be in college. They are the problem for America. Now, that sounds pretty familiar to something else, just straight up racism, right? But because of these minority rights, people get the idea that only the majority can be racist and the minority is just maybe talking back or trying to repay. That's not the case at all. The people that this woman is talking about never owned slaves. They probably have never done anything to a black person. And the majority of people in the world aren't criminals. They're not a problem population. They're people. It's a few out of almost every population that you'll find who are going to be rapists or murderers or whatever. So that's one instance of this reverse racism. Another instance is with the Supreme Court case of Regents of University of California versus Baquet. Now, basically, what happened in this case was Alan Baquet, he went to apply to the University of California. But what happened was they had decided that they were going to reserve, I believe, 16 seats in their class for black people only. Now, all the other seats filled up with white people, and these 16 seats weren't full yet. Maybe a few black people had applied, but they weren't full yet. So Mr. Baquet, he went to apply, but they rejected him because he was white. Now that really doesn't make sense. So just to kind of illustrate a little bit better, I have this little diagram here, poorly drawn diagram. So imagine all these blue dots here. These are all the seats that are open to whomever. You can apply and get into one of those seats if you're black, white, purple, whatever. Doesn't matter. Now these red seats up here are for black people only. Now, Let me. All these seats are full. None of these seats are full. Now, if a white person tries to apply, they get rejected on the grounds that they are not black. Now, this is almost like saying, you can't get on our bus because all the seats for black people are taken and there's only seats for white people left, so you can't get on our bus. Sound familiar? This is really the same as the racism that was seen back before the Civil Rights Movement, except backwards. So this is a really a big problem. Now here's another example, even further. Recently, just on New Year's Day of this year, there was a large riots, attacks, I guess is what they call them, basically mob rapings in the city of Cologne in Germany. Now, the women who were raped say that all of the men who were involved were Syrian refugees. And the police who were there are corroborating that story. But the thing is that many of them aren't going to be prosecuted, because you can't say, oh, well, these people of this race were doing this, even though everybody that was involved in these attacks were of this race. But that's not politically correct. And even here in America, many people haven't even heard about it because they're not going to show the stories on news channels, because it's not politically correct to say that a minority group was involved in this problem. It's really mind-blowing how they're letting criminals get away with heinous crimes under the guise of political correctness. Well, how can we fix this problem? That's the big thing. How can we fix it? Because it's really not something that the government can fix. They've done what they can. They can't fix it. It's something that each individual has to look at and try to fix themselves. And by fix themselves, I mean you need to look at yourself and say, am I looking at, these people over here as a minority and they need to be treated specially, and then these people over here are a majority, so because they're a majority, it doesn't matter what happens to them. We need to stop looking at people as minorities and majorities, as white and black and whatever other colors. We need to start looking at people as people. They all deserve to be treated the same. And that means that for the majorities, they should get the exact same rights as minorities. Minorities should get the same rights as majorities. And they should get the same punishments as well. So, really, that's it. And I exhort you all to end reverse racism.